guess we can start. It's 2 p.m. Welcome to this press conference on Leapfrogging MENA's sustainability journey. And my name is Kim Hui Neo, Managing Director at the World Economic Forum. And I'm delighted to have with me three very distinguished panelists who will be sharing some insights regarding the report that we had launched earlier this morning on the topic of sustainability and the MENA region. So if I may just start with quick introductions. Right, on my left, I have Mr. Ahmad Ismail. He's CEO of Majid Al Fatam Holding. Mr. Tom Dewole, Managing Partner at Bain & Company, our knowledge partner. And Ms. Hanidi Al-Saleh, who is Chair of the Board for Agility. And it's a delight to have all of you here today. We just launched the report this morning, 6 a.m. Dubai time. It's collaboration between Bain and the World Economic Forum and championed by leaders for sustainable MENA, right? With climate data from more than 200 companies in the MENA region, taking stock of where the companies are on their journey, and also collecting voices from the ground, 2,000 views, feedback from consumers around how they would like to see sustainability evolve and continue to grow in this part of the world. I'll just share a few highlights, and then I'll invite the panelists to share more intimate thoughts and insights on their perspectives. One, the bad news, the Middle East and North Africa is warming at twice the pace of global average temperatures. Obviously, this will bring severe impact on food and water. It will have severe impact on jobs, livelihoods, security, and human health. 500 million people live in this part of the region. The unfortunate part is that the private sector still lags in their corporate action. They lag behind where the public sector's ambitions lie. 12% of the region's largest 200 companies have a net zero target, only 12%. And 6% have a roadmap, meaning a plan as to how they're going to achieve these targets. So there's still a lot of room for growth and improvement. But the good news that's been flagged out by this report is also that there's opportunity for the MENA region to leapfrog on this journey, because there are many good things going for this part of the world. One, very strong natural resource base, solar and wind resources, untapped land, availability of finance, infrastructure, and also decisive leadership, right? So the challenge is how can we actually connect the dots between sustainability, between economic diversification, job creation, to provide that next leap and lap of growth, as well as improve quality of life for the people here. And on this point, I would like to invite Mr. Ahmad, right? He's one of the champions in this MENA region. Majid Al Fatam has been a front runner, right? You've not just published and set out targets around scopes 1 and 2, but also scopes 3, right? And I'd love to have you share your story, your personal journey, as well as what you see as potential challenges, why corporates are not moving faster, and how one can mobilize more to lead the charge in leapfrogging sustainability for this part of the world. So, please.
Thank you very much, and I'm delighted to be here today. Majid Al Fatam has obviously been one of the first movers in terms of announcing a very firm commitment to net positive on carbon and water by 2040. And the reason that we're one of the first movers is actually it's pretty much aligned with the foundational values at Majid Al Fatam. We think ourselves not just as a commercial entity, but also part of the fabric of society, because our values are simply about being bold, passionate, and together. And for us, togetherness takes a broader sense of togetherness with all of our stakeholders, including the communities and the broader planet. We have since evolved to commit to science-based targets, which would allow us to align our own outputs and trajectory with keeping the 1.5 degrees sort of target alive. And that has required us to make, I would say, significant disclosures and investments over time. We've had many learnings, but perhaps the biggest learning throughout the journey is at Majid Al Fatam, gradually but surely, everyone in the company, including at the board and leadership level, have now started to understand that investments in sustainability is not a trade-off for businesses, but is actually a trade-on. You do not have to trade off your ability to finance the company for the long term to stay competitive, but actually the investment sustainability could allow you, and as we've demonstrated, allow you to stay more competitive and more relevant on the long term. So for instance, when it comes to financing, which is a big lever in order to affect the proper transition, we have been able to raise cumulatively over $4.5 billion of green bonds and sukuks. The latest issue of green sukuks over the summer was 6 times oversubscribed and was issued at the lowest margin ever for a BBB issuer from the GCC, Central Europe, and Southeast Asia. So this goes to show that actually for the right sustainability-linked strategies and investments, you can raise the right level of financing. We've seen that in our real estate business, where we've seen large shopping malls, perhaps one of the most loved and visited shopping destinations like Mall of the Emirates, continue to go from strength to strength and yet become the largest LEED certified shopping mall in the world. And every day in our Carrefour stores, we're seeing also that consumer habits are shifting as well, where consumers are choosing to buy more local. And that comes obviously with a lot of education, a lot of understanding of what local means, etc. But certainly there are clear evidence that sustainability and investment sustainability is not just an existential issue, but a fantastic opportunities for businesses to trade on rather than trade off their performance. We've also come to realize that this is a challenge that cannot be done alone. No one company can achieve this alone. It requires collaboration well beyond our 4 walls. And that means extreme transparency. It is an issue, as the report highlights, that only 80%, actually only 20% of listed companies in MENA have a quantitative sustainability disclosure in their annual reports. We think that disclosing the successes as well as the setbacks are very important to raise awareness and to recruit others to join us on this journey. We did the first embodied carbon benchmark study for some of our key assets. And in that benchmark study, we realized that the embodied carbon in most of our developments is 20% higher than the global average, which goes to show the resource intensity of real estate development here in the region, which is very important for economic growth. And we committed to reduce that by 20%. We have failed in a couple of developments. We were very open about that setback, and we offset it by buying carbon credits from a mangrove certified project in Pakistan. So you have a UAE developer committing to reduce embodied carbon by 20%, failing to do so on projects in Oman and Egypt and having to find an offset in Pakistan, which goes to show that this is really a collective challenge that requires collective collaboration. I think from our perspective on what needs to be done more to recruit more people, I think we see 5 shades of gray, 5 shades of green, I'm sorry, in this regard. We need more green financing. Companies with strong balance sheets, BBB plus ratings are able to tap the global debt capital markets. We need to avail more financing to smaller companies that don't have access to that financing. We need more investment in green talent. Youth in this part of the world are among the least concerned about sustainability in the world, and this is a challenge. Frankly, we need some also green regulation as taxes and other fiscal instruments mature in our part of the world. We need green frameworks to provide the right incentives for the private sector to continue to invest in sustainability. We need certainly a lot of green tech and climate tech. But above all, I think it's really about the green mindset, how you shift your perspective on sustainability from being a trade-off to actually being a trade-on for how business is run here in the Middle East and North Africa.
Thank you, Ahmed. We will have questions, with time for questions later on, so if you could just hold your questions. I'll now turn to Tom, right? And we're talking about systems change here, right? And one of the key levers for systems change is the policy lever, right? You've been our knowledge partner on this report, and I was wondering whether you could share with us some of the insights that you've drawn from this work, right, around how leaders can actually support companies and other stakeholders on the sustainability journey.
Yeah, thank you so much. And first of all, let me start by saying, obviously, we as an advisor to corporates and governance in the Middle East, we see a lot of these debates, happening on a daily basis. But this was really an opportunity, I think, also for us to take a broader perspective and see what's really going on, what are the challenges, what are some of the roadblocks, how are leaders doing, what can others learn from them. And it's exactly this type of group that I think the COP28 also leadership in the UAE has in mind when they're thinking about how to bridge the gap from policy or theory to action. And that's why we were very excited also in this collaboration, because it's called a report, but it was really maybe not yet a movement, but a group of very committed and passionate, I think, corporates and other stakeholders that came together in order to shape the debate. I think the policy aspect is extremely interesting, and poses an extremely interesting challenge, because we have 60% now of MENA emissions from national ambitions that have been declared and so on under a net zero ambition. At the same time, if you look at a 2050 horizon, the world will need 40% more energy still to sustain its growth. And obviously this region is at the heart of a lot of that energy supply. So first of all, we obviously need to transition our energy systems here locally in order to live up to that net zero ambition that the governments has set. And that's going to cost a lot of effort, a lot of money, a lot of probably challenges, setbacks going back and forth. At the same time, it represents an amazing opportunity, I think, for the region to continue to be an energy leader in the world, but thinking about energy as energy of the future, sustainable energy, and so on. And just a few topics that were highlighted as well in the report. For example, the solar energy cost in the region is 1/5 of the global average. So how can we leverage that? Green hydrogen, we already know that this region will aim to be a hub and leverage its advantages there. And there's also a set of softer, I'd say, advantages that we have. We have a set of long-term capital providers in the sovereigns that are looking to invest and can provide long-term capital. We have, as mentioned, we are an energy hub, which means we have all the infrastructure to think about energy. The question is more how to bring it from conventional energy to the newer sustainable energy forms, but we have the hard infrastructure, we have the commercial frameworks, we have the legal setup to do so. And I think we all recognize that there's a very decisive and action-focused leadership in this region that has proven in the past that can make decisions quickly, move to actions quickly, and so on. And I think that will also be a very important enabler. And so in this, I'd say, on the one hand, we have to be visionary. On the other hand, we have to be pragmatic. And as part of the report, I think we talk about this visionary pragmatism. Visionary because we have to imagine the pathways of the future. We have to, as policymakers, imagine where we need to invest to enable all of the future of net zero, sustainable energy, and so on. On the other hand, we have to be pragmatic that the world is counting still on the region in order to be a reliable, affordable, stable energy provider for many years to come. And so that's really I think that the challenge that policymakers are now looking to address. Practically, I think what they can do, and obviously I hope that we are going to say a couple of the same things across this panel. One, I think the policy and regulation clarity, and as much as possible standardization across the region, I think will be important and will make it easier for also corporates that operate across the region to be more effective. Second, a lot of the region's solutions will be technology-based. This is not a region where nature-based solutions are very effective nor efficient. And so these technology-based solutions, a lot of them are in their infancy, they are still subscale, they are still expensive. So what can policymakers do in order to provide financing, provide incentives, as you mentioned, provide certain offtake agreements that give the people who develop these technologies the confidence to invest, because they know that they will have certain volumes. And then the talent was already mentioned. I think the policymakers have a big role in terms of building the talent base of the future, and the talent base that will enable not just to be a great hub for conventional energy, but a great hub for sustainable energy and for sustainability. And maybe a very final point is that on the consumer awareness, you already also mentioned it, it's actually, our report shows that it's increasing and people are starting to be aware, be involved. Consumer behavior is slowly starting to shift towards more sustainable products and services, but there is still a set of the awareness where private sector will have its role, but also the policymakers will need to play an active role.
Thank you, Tom. If I may now turn to Nadi. Sustainability is about environmental footprint, but also about the social people dimensions. It's also about security, stability to ensure a very orderly transition towards a more sustainable future. And there are many things to juggle. It's complex, right? What is your advice on how business can navigate the complexities of transformation?
So at Agility, the way we think about sustainability is literally about future-proofing our business. It's not so much about risk mitigation, but it's about finding new technologies and new ways to drive growth and to drive additional revenue and to align with your stakeholders. We believe that green technology has reached a tipping point. What you see is cost curves are coming down, governments are incentivizing businesses and consumers alike to engage in greener products. And what we find is you see capital being deployed that way, whether it comes from equity investors or debt investors. Across the GCC, countries are making sustainability as a core part of their targets. And what you're finding more and more, as you can see from the panel, is that businesses are following suit in order to contribute to it. And what the study points out is that even you find consumers in this region actually willing to pay a slight premium more than the US for green products. So bold action is required, and it's required now. From a business perspective, we do see navigating this green pathway beneficial from revenue contribution, contributing to country targets, and at the same time attractive to investors. So from our perspective, how do we go about it? The way we think about it is really landscaping your business, setting your targets, enabling talent within your business to actually achieve it. And thereafter, what you find is building coalitions and partnerships with like-minded people or governments is a key way. Just focusing in on Agility, we're in the transportation sector. It contributes north of 20% of emissions worldwide. So we are in hard-to-abate sectors, but we've landscaped our sectors. In the aviation business, our company, Menzies, has already set science-based targets to achieve by 2030. And if you look at the rest of our business, they all have their ESG roadmap, and they're held accountable by the board. In parallel to that, what we've done is we've built capacity. We have the first warehouse in Saudi Arabia, which is EDGE certified, and our engineering team have been designated as EDGE experts. And we hope to replicate that within our footprint across the regions where we're present. Not just that, we're proactively investing in this space. We've deployed close to $200 million worth of investments within the VC space with regards to the different sectors we're in, literally addressing this point. So we've invested in EV vehicles, charging stations, solar panels, and so on. And we've done this for the past 10 years and plan on continuing to do so. And we're partnering for progress. So our aviation business is already partnering airports and other providers in order to increase the usage of safe fuel, growing it from 1% to 2% of global usage. And these are the actions which we believe are imperative, and it's imperative upon business to actually undertake and move forward with, and the time is literally now.
Thank you, Nadi. Thank you to the three panelists. I think we have 11 minutes. Are there any questions from the floor? Yes, maybe if I could invite you to introduce yourself and then ask your question. Yeah, and then followed by the lady. Yeah.
Hello. Frank Kane from Arabian Gulf Business Insight website. This is a question really about policy and I guess perception too, but I think it will be one of the issues at COP28. Policymakers in the region have laid great store and put great resources into climate change technology, things like carbon capture, direct air capture, as ways of mitigating greenhouse gas emissions and reaching their 2050 targets and net zero targets. The environmentalists, on the other hand, say that this is all just a smokescreen, a deception to allow hydrocarbon producers to keep on pumping oil and gas. Which do you think it is? Is it real or is it a deception?
Ahmad, you want to?
Yeah, I
maybe
think
Tom.
to address that, building on what has already been discussed on the panel, I mean, obviously, tech is important. Technology-based solutions are very important. And we see technology-based solutions at work in our business already today, because costs are coming down, the effectiveness and efficacy of all of these solutions are evident on the rooftops of our shopping centers, in our warehouses, in every facet of the business. It's also important to note that, yes, some technologies early on take time to mature and hit the right cost curve. We have an annual program, and it's very admirable, you know, that Agility has allocated $200 million to VC investments in sustainability-linked technologies. We have a global launchpad program where we canvass the world for climate tech, prop tech solutions, and we've had solution providers come in from all over the world. 2 weeks ago here in Dubai, from Finland, from Australia, from the US, and some of these technologies are quite profound, and as much as they need investment and they need government support, they also need the private sector to provide access to their commercial platforms. And some of these solutions do offer fantastic outcomes in terms of sustainability, but also help operating efficiency, improve the customer experience, the livability of the assets, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it is indeed a very powerful lever, but it's not the only lever per se in the way forward. Nature-based solutions in the region may not be as prevalent, but they're also quite effective. And that goes to show that mangroves, for instance, are 5 times more effective as a carbon sink versus hill forests. And that's an area where, you know, you can invest. So it is a combination of nature-based solutions, regulations, technology-based solutions that's going to get us there. But technology, indeed, at least from our perspective, has a role to play.
Tom, would you like to add?
Yeah, just to complement briefly, but I think you're absolutely right that the solution is not technology alone. I think what we also try to lay out in the report is really kind of 3 big things that have to happen in that sequence. The first one is consume less. Right? If you think about a policymaker, and a number of policymakers are looking at, you know, how do we consume less energy? How do we then turn the supply green? Which is what I mentioned around how do we change our own energy supply from conventional energies to, we mentioned green hydrogen, we're being more active in solar and so on. And then there is a phrase which is maybe a bit generic, but manage the rest, right? Even after we've consumed less, even after we've turned our supply green, there will be still a set of emissions that we have to deal with through technology, which needs indeed time to come down the cost curve and down the volume and capacity curve. And some technologies will work, some will not work, we'll have to figure out, we'll have to pivot. Some nature-based solutions, some others. But there is I know there is a lot of debate on technology, but I do think that the policy agenda is broader than just counting on technology to solve the issue.
Thank you. And the lady over there?
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the panelists. My name is Nasreen Al-Saim. I used to chair the UN Secretary General's Youth Advisory Group on Climate Change, but I'm a global shaper, and I'm here as the Khartoum hub, where there is no Khartoum anymore. Anyway, thank you very much for the panelists for what you shared, and it is very important to acknowledge the progress that we have actually made in making the supply more green, but also to make the consumers are more green. But we are talking about the MENA region, which is a very different, it is one region, but it have a different, very different situation and circumstances. And by the time we are actually doing a lot of progress on the higher level of the consumer consumers' supply, we are also dropping a big part of the population, and the gap is actually becoming bigger and bigger with the more vulnerable communities and more fragile states. I mean, the region is Libya, Sudan, Yemen, Syria, Palestine, Lebanon, and there is a lot of big areas where there is a huge gap currently, and their voices is not here in these spaces, and somehow we need to make a progress here to make a progress there. So the bottom-up approach is totally missing in a lot of the concept that we are actually talking about right now. I mean, for example, Mr. Saleh just talked about the ESG, and if there is no G, there is no S, and there is no E. And the governance perspective itself and how can we lay it in the current reality is really very important. But the most other important is that our region have more than 60% population of young people. So how can we, and they are the bigger consumers, of course, but they are also the bigger fragile community right now. So how can we mix between the current situation of fragility plus consumers plus the progress we made on the higher level, but also the people that we are actually leaving behind if we wanted to make a more SDG prospect of leaving no one behind. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Nadi, can I invite you to respond?
Thank you for your comment. I mean, from a supply chain business, we're largely a B2B business, but what we find down to the consumer side on some of our businesses which touch the consumer and within this region itself, I wouldn't underestimate sort of the awareness and the drive that the youth have when it comes to, you know, greener choices, greener products, and asking and actually demanding greener products. Just an anecdotal example: we have a last mile delivery business, and in which, as a byproduct of it, they also give the option to consumers to buy cross-border. What we're finding more and more is the demand on sort of electric last mile vehicles, payments that are a lot greener, and the products that we see come in are a lot more greener products. So I wouldn't underestimate sort of the demand and the drive of the people when it comes to these products, and in turn that makes us a lot more conscious and drive these initiatives in order to improve our communities. So in a lot of these regions that you talk about that we actually operate in. From a business perspective, in Saudi Arabia, we are EDGE certified. We're looking to replicate that in all the different parts in Africa in which we are in which we own industrial warehouses. We are a major investor in a solar thermal panel business, and it's part of our mandate in order to understand how can we replicate that in different parts of Africa where we are building infrastructure and warehouses. So I think it works hand in hand. I agree there are probably some gaps, but the consumers do speak. We as corporates do the best we can, and we are trying to replicate that within the emerging markets.
Thank you. The others, do you want to?
From our perspective, we obviously don't just operate in the GCC as Majid Fotain. We also operate in Kenya. We operate in Pakistan. We have a big presence in Egypt. I actually just returned from Egypt overnight, where we've just celebrated 25 years of business in Egypt. And over 25 years, we've invested $2.5 billion in the Egyptian economy. And as a result of that, that created 144,000 direct and indirect jobs. It has also helped us to localize our business in Egypt over the years, whereby 99% of the products that we carry in our retail stores, food and grocery stores, are actually sourced locally. And it is this mindset that this type of local investment, localization of supply chains, is actually good for business. It's also good for the community, because some of the early farmers in Kenya and Egypt, as well as the food processors that we have helped develop, don't just now serve the local market, but we actually export throughout our network, and we bring much needed foreign currency back into these markets. I think it's important in these discussions, I think sometimes for businesses, especially in the region, to speak up about what they're doing and to speak up with courage. Because some of the undue criticism that sometimes is directed towards the MENA region has the effect potentially of getting that accusation of greenwashing, continuous accusation of greenwashing, to get us to become green hushed in a way and stop talking about what we're doing. But there is a lot going on, and today The region has the lowest cost of solar power production, almost 1 cent per kilowatt, the lowest cost of hydrocarbon production, the lowest footprint carbon-wise of hydrocarbon. So the world should actually look at the region perhaps as the energy basket that is the cleanest and safest, rather than other way around. And that is part of, I think, the value of a coalition like the Leaders for Sustainable MENA, to actually speak up, showcase, and enlist more, willing partners from the private sector and the public sector to talk about the good work that we're doing, challenges, and the very long road we have ahead of us to get there. Yeah.
Thank you. We've come to time, right? Thank you for joining us today, right? And thank you to the panelists. Thank you.